Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at creativity. It feels like something everyone wants more of, right?
Absolutely. And we're basing this deep dive on a really interesting transcript excerpt from a YouTube video. It's called How to Generate the Most Creative Ideas, Even If You Are Not Creative.
Yeah, and what we want to do is use this source to tackle, a really common myth about creativity. But more than that, pull out some practical stuff. Techniques it talks about for actually boosting your own creative potential.
The core idea, and it might actually surprise you, is that creativity isn't this, mystical gift only some people have.
It's presented as much more down to earth, something you can learn. A skill, really.
Exactly. A skill you can practice and get better at systematically.
So by the end of our chat today, the aim is for you, listen, to maybe see your own creative abilities differently and hopefully walk away with some concrete tools you can use when you're facing challenges.
Definitely practical takeaways.
Okay, so let's jump in. This source talks about the biggest lie about creativity. What exactly is that lie?
It's basically the idea that you're either born creative or you're not, that it's fixed. You've either got it or you don't.
Right. And that sets up this whole mythology, doesn't it? The tortured artist, the eccentric inventor working in isolation.
Yeah, the visionary CEO who just has these brilliant flashes of insight.
And if that's not you, if you don't see yourself in that picture,
then it's really easy to feel like, well, I guess I'm just not a creative person. You kind of count yourself out.
Which, according to the research the source highlights, is not just a bit sad, it's fundamentally wrong. It misunderstands how creativity actually functions.
Yeah, the evidence points elsewhere. Creativity isn't some magical trait. It's learnable. It's a skill you develop. And maybe the most important part, you can apply it systematically, like on purpose.
So the people we think of as highly creative, they're not necessarily operating on some different wavelength.
Not really. Or at least the source argues they treat creativity as a process. They don't just sit around waiting for the muse.
Okay. So what does that process look like, according to this transcript?
Well, they use specific techniques. They actively create conditions for insight to happen. They're very good at combining existing ideas. And this is key. They generate tons of ideas.
Tons, including bad ones.
Especially including bad ones. They understand that failure or just mediocre ideas are part of the road. You need the volume to get the gem. They don't fear failure in the same way.
That shift from innate talent to learnable process feels cute. And the source makes another great point. Your brain is already creative all the time.
It absolutely is. Think about your day. You solve little problems constantly. Figuring out how to fix something that broke. That's creative. Finding a quicker way to get through your email. Creative. Making someone laugh with an unexpected comment.
Creative. Yeah, I see. So the issue isn't that we lack the machinery.
Not at all. The issue is we have this really narrow definition, usually tied to the arts or big inventions.
But if you define it more broadly, like the source suggests just the ability to generate novel and useful solutions, then you realize, yeah, your brain does that constantly.
Exactly. Adapting, solving, connecting things. It's happening all the time.
So the goal isn't becoming a different person. It's about recognizing that process and turbocharging it, making it more intentional with techniques.
Precisely. You don't wait for inspiration. You use methods. Think about professionals who need ideas regularly, advertising, design, software development. They don't just hope for the best. They have systematic approaches.
It's like learning any other skill, really. You practice, you use tools.
And the really freeing thing this source emphasizes is that it's not about having genius ideas right from the start. It's about having a system to generate lots of ideas and then refining them.
Once you have the methods, you're not just stuck waiting.
Right. Which leads us neatly into the first specific technique the transcript discusses. And it actually challenges some very common advice.
The break the box section. And the idea that maybe think outside the box isn't actually the best advice.
Yeah, it sounds liberating, doesn't it? No limit. But the argument here is that complete freedom, infinite possibility, it doesn't spark creativity. It often leads to, getting stuck. Paralysis.
Too many options. You just freeze up, don't know where to even begin.
Exactly. And paradoxically, real innovation often comes from wrestling with limitation. Working within constraint forces you to be more inventive because the easy answers are often ruled out.
Right. You have to find a non-obvious path. The source gives examples, like filmmakers on tiny budgets.
Yeah, like the Blair Witch Project. The lack of money forced that whole found footage psychological horror approach. That limitation became its unique selling point.
Or think about Twitter's original character limit. That constraint didn't stifle communication. It basically invented a whole new style of it. Brevity, wit.
Or even something like haiku poetry.
Right.
The strict 17-syllable structure isn't a barrier to creativity. It is the creative challenge. The form itself pushes the poet. You need that friction.
Okay, so how do you apply this? If constraints are good, how do you use them?
Well, The source suggests changing the question you ask yourself instead of how can I be creative, which is way too broad.
Yeah, where do you start with that?
Ask something specific. How can I solve this particular problem with these specific limitations? Maybe time, budget, materials.
And if you don't have obvious external constraints,
You can invent them. Give yourself artificial ones like, okay, I have 10 minutes to brainstorm 20 solutions, or I have to solve this using only household items, or this project can't cost more than $50.
it sounds restrictive, but the idea is that this focuses your brain, right? It channels your thinking.
Precisely. It cuts off the obvious paths and forces you to explore less conventional routes. Unexpected connections happen then.
So the constraint isn't the enemy. It's actually a creative tool.
It's your partner in the process.
Yeah.
So next time you face a tight deadline or a small budget, try thinking of that box as the thing that will help you find a truly creative solution.
Okay, embrace the box. Got it. But inside that box, where do the ideas actually, bubble up from? That brings us to the second technique this source talks about, which sort of challenges our obsession with pure originality.
Yeah, this is the whole steal like an artist concept,
Right.
which sounds a bit provocative, but the core idea is that almost nothing is truly 100% original.
Everything builds on what came before.
Right. All creativity involves combining existing ideas, maybe tweaking them, applying them in a new context.
And accepting that is actually freeing. It means you don't have to stare at a blank canvas waiting for a lightning bolt.
Exactly. You can start looking around actively for things to combine, to adapt. The source points out that really creative people are often masters of spotting good ideas elsewhere and figuring out how to repurpose them.
Okay, like the examples given, Steve Jobs didn't invent the core technologies in the iPod or iPhone, did he?
No, but he was brilliant at integrating existing tech, MP3 players, graphical interfaces, mobile phones, touch screens into something new and incredibly user-friendly. The genius was in the combination and execution.
Or Shakespeare borrowing plots left, right, and center.
But transforming, adding his incredible language, his depth of character. The Beatles soaked up everything: blues, rock and roll, folk, Indian music.
And synthesized it into something completely their own.
Yeah. And the key distinction the source makes is crucial. It's not about just crudely copying. It's about intelligent borrowing. You study why something works, its underlying principles, and then apply those principles in your own way, maybe in a totally different field.
So looking outside your own area is important here.
Hugely important, according to this material. If you only look within your own industry or discipline, you'll likely just replicate what's already there. The real breakthroughs often come from seeing how a totally different field solved a similar human problem.
Like, how does a restaurant create a really welcoming atmosphere? Or how does a video game keep you hooked?
Or how does a therapist help people change habits? How does a great teacher make complex stuff seem simple? These are all solutions to human challenges that might spark an idea for your own seemingly unrelated problem.
But to make those cross connections, you need exposure to different things, right? You can't just stay in your bubble.
Absolutely. If your information diet is too narrow, you just create an echo chamber. You keep thinking the same thoughts, reinforcing the same patterns, no room for novel combinations.
So the source suggests being deliberate about getting diverse input.
Yeah, consciously seek out unfamiliar stuff. Read magazines from industries you know nothing about. Watch documentaries on topics outside your usual interests. Talk to people with completely different jobs. Go to new places, museums, different neighborhoods, libraries.
Fill the well with varied ingredients, basically.
Exactly. Increase the odds that your brain will bump two unexpected ideas together. This is where analogical thinking comes in, seeing a pattern or solution in one place and realizing it fits somewhere else.
Right, the transcript gave those great examples, like Velcro.
Came from a guy noticing how burr seeds stuck to his dog's fur after a walk. He studied the hook and loop mechanism.
Or Airbnb, starting because the founders rented out air mattresses.
Yeah, during a conference when hotels were full, they saw a solution, spare space, applied to a problem, lack of accommodation, in a new way.
And Post-it notes from a glue that failed because it wasn't sticky enough.
Right. They didn't see it as a failure. They saw a weak, repositionable adhesive, a solution looking for a problem. They found the problem. Temporary notes.
And none of those were conjured from thin air. Observation, connection, application.
That's the essence of it.
Yeah.
So the question for you listening is, how can you deliberately broaden what you expose yourself to? And how can you actively look for those parallels, those analogies between unrelated areas?
Okay, so embrace constraints and actively combine ideas from diverse sources. But how do you actually get enough stuff to combine? How do you make sure you're generating enough raw material? This leads to the third technique, building an ideas factory.
Right. And this one pushes against our usual focus on quality over quantity, at least initially.
Yeah.
The core idea here is that counterintuitively, quantity often leads to quality.
How does that work?
Well, people who are highly prolific creatively don't necessarily have a higher hit rate. like a better percentage of brilliant ideas. They just produce way more ideas overall.
Ah, so by sheer volume, they end up with more good ones, typically.
Pretty much. And crucially, this means you have to be okay with generating a lot of duds. Mediocre ideas, even terrible ones, aren't failures in this model. They're just part of the process. Sometimes they have a useful seed within them, or they clear the path for a better idea later.
So less waiting for the perfect idea, more cranking out possibilities.
Exactly. It shifts creativity from being about mood or inspiration, which are unreliable, to being about discipline and habit, building a system for output.
Okay, so how do you build this ideas factory? What are the practical steps from the source?
First, dedicate specific time for it. Maybe it's just 15 minutes every morning or an hour block once a week. Consistency is the key, not necessarily the duration.
And during that time, just generate. No filtering yet.
No filtering, that's crucial. Also, set quantity targets. Aim for, say, 10 ideas per session or 50 ideas a week. The number itself isn't magic. It's about the habit of consistently trying to hit a target.
And having a way to capture ideas whenever they pop up.
Always. A notebook, an app, a document. Because ideas don't just arrive during your scheduled idea time. They show up when you're walking, showering, commuting. You need to grab them before they vanish.
The source also mentions environment, right? Physical space.
Yeah, it does impact your thinking. Maybe a clean, organized space helps you focus for refining ideas, but sometimes a slightly messier, more informal space can encourage looser association, which is good for generation.
So changing your environment if you feel stuck could help.
Definitely. Go to a coffee shop, work in the library, sit in a park. Pay attention to where you tend to have good ideas. Is it noisy? Quiet? Indoors? Outdoors? Try to replicate those conditions sometimes.
What about the mental environment, the psychological?
That's huge too. Creative thinking thrives on a tolerance for ambiguity, for uncertainty. We're often trained to find the right answer fast, but creativity often means sitting with not knowing for a bit.
And that links back to not judging ideas too early.
Exactly. Defer judgment. This is maybe the single most important tactic during generation. Explicitly separate creating from critiquing. Let the silly, impractical, half-baked ideas come out. Don't shoot them down immediately.
Because they might lead somewhere unexpected.
You might contain a grain of truth or combine with another bad idea to make something interesting. Treat it like exercise.
Exercise.
Yeah, like physical fitness. You don't get fit by doing one massive workout once a month. You get fit through regular, consistent effort. Same with creative muscle. 15 minutes of idea generation daily is more effective than trying to force a brilliant idea for hours once in a while.
So build little creative challenges into your routine, like redesigning everyday objects in your head or trying to solve a friend's problem in 10 different ways.
Perfect example. Just keep the idea muscle working. Maybe even track your output, not for quality judgment, but just to notice patterns. When do ideas flow best for you? What kind of prompts work?
So the question becomes, how can you build some form of consistent, low-stakes idea generation into your own routine?
That's the challenge.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together. This deep dive into the source material really hammers home a central message, doesn't it? Creativity isn't some fixed thing you have or don't have.
No, it's presented as a dynamic skill, something you can actively cultivate.
And you cultivate it through these practical techniques we've discussed, like embracing constraints, seeing them as helpful,
Actively seeking out and combining ideas from all sorts of different places.
and making idea generation a regular habit, prioritizing quantity first to get to quality.
The capacity, the potential, it's already there in your brain. These methods are just ways to unlock it more systematically.
You don't have to wait for lightning to strike.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been great exploring this.
And to leave you with a thought, building on what we've discussed, if creativity really is a skill that improves with practice and relies on being willing to generate imperfect, what's just one small, maybe imperfect idea you could commit to generating today or